A week ago, Malcolm Turnbull had the overwhelming support of his party room for his energy policy. Since then, he's twice capitulated to the Conservative wing of his own party to sandbag his leadership. But even that's not been enough. Today, the Prime Minister went the nuclear option of declaring the party leadership vacant in an effort to flush out his enemies and buy himself more time. He did do that, but the question now is whether he can do anything from this point to save his leadership. In a moment, I'll speak to his deputy, Julie Bishop, but first, 7:30's chief political correspondent, Laura Tinkle, joins me from Canberra. Laura, this is far from the end of the leadership issue, one must imagine.
Far from the end, Lee. I think the big question has been about the timing of this. Without a doubt, it's quite a clinical coup. You'd have to think that there's been quite a lot of planning in this. When the move was made by Malcolm Turnbull this morning, it took the plotters, if you like, by surprise, because they'd been looking at doing this later this week or possibly even in September. Now, they've now responded, they've regrouped, and one of the big signals about how fast they may now move against Malcolm Turnbull is in the inevitable run of resignations of frontbenchers who obviously voted against Malcolm Turnbull today. We're now up to 5 resignations, and I think the letter from one of them, Senator Fierravanti-Wells, suggests that it just points to the fact that it's really about the Conservative wing that has started the revolt. This makes it very difficult for Malcolm Turnbull. Apart from the fact that he's losing a lot of his front bench, he has to go through the motions, at least, of trying to reshuffle his front bench. That only creates more uncertainty and unhappiness amongst a wide range of people, and it makes it really difficult. So I think that means that we're really at a position where the question is not now whether there will be a second challenge, but when.
The top stories: the Liberal Party room will attend a meeting today amid a leadership crisis.
I think the numbers are shifting. That is a very significant development.
Does Malcolm Turnbull have your support as Prime Minister?
You would think they would have learned by now. On both sides of politics, leaders are cut down to settle personal grudges for fear of election loss and over policy disputes. In this case, it's all three. It's just as ugly, and it is unlikely to end any better.
Malcolm Turnbull has called on the leadership contest, thinking that he has the numbers and that he might save himself. But the vote has been too close. It's 45-38. They'll be back for him in the next few days.
When it comes to leadership coups, first attempts are rarely successful, but second attempts are. In 2012, Julia Gillard stared down Kevin Rudd's first bid to take back the leadership, 71-31, only to lose the next year. Tony Abbott won his first spill, no candidate nominated then, 61-39, but later lost to Malcolm Turnbull.
My job is to do everything I can to ensure that we are united and work together. And as you know, I don't bear any grudge against Peter Dutton for having stood up and challenged me today, and I invited him, in fact, to continue in his position.
Peter Dutton is now on the backbench and free to lobby his colleagues. And the overwhelming view is another spill isn't far away.
Can you guarantee that you will not launch a leadership challenge before the next election?
I harboured no animosity toward Malcolm Turnbull. I've always had a very good working and productive working relationship with Malcolm Turnbull, and I harbour no animosity toward the Prime Minister now. I want to make sure that I can support the party and make sure that we win the next election.
The collapse of support for the Prime Minister is built in part on fear of what lies ahead at a federal election in Queensland. Luke Howarth is therefore one of the MPs at the pointy end of the Coalition's leadership struggle. He won't explicitly say who he voted for.
Peter Dutton's a neighbour of mine. He's in the neighbouring seat. He's been a mentor to me. He's a really, really good minister. He's been on the front bench for some 15 years, and I very much support Peter Dutton, but I also support the Prime Minister as well. But the base certainly was upset after the Longman by-election, and they want to make sure that we're listening and addressing that. They want to make sure that our government is a centre-right government. The Liberal National Party in Queensland is a centre-right party, and we need to be talking to them rather than being squeezed out in the centre.
So does that mean going into sort of issues that One Nation's been tapping into, like immigration?
Well, immigration is definitely on people's radar, for sure. But it's also other issues as well, politically correct issues which they're not happy about.
You have to go back to John Howard's victory in 2004 to find the last time a Prime Minister was allowed to finish a full term. There's since been a decade of leadership instability. Kevin Rudd, Julia Gillard, Kevin Rudd, Tony Abbott, Malcolm Turnbull, and a total absence of climate and energy policy. Kevin Rudd tried and failed to introduce an emissions trading scheme in 2009. The Gillard government successfully introduced a carbon trading scheme in 2011. Tony Abbott repealed it 3 years later and replaced it with a direct action policy. Since Malcolm Turnbull replaced him in 2015, his government's attempted to legislate an emissions intensity scheme, a rejigged clean energy target, and a national energy guarantee.
Well, it's been devastating for business and it's been devastating for politics as well. We've had no policy certainty around energy now for a decade.
There are moments of collective madness in politics. Years of watching them up close do not make them seem any more rational when they occur, or less shocking. Malcolm Turnbull's only real hope is that his colleagues were forced to make a snap decision on the leadership this morning. Having seen how close the result was, they might have cause for pause in coming days.
Australians expect us to be focused on them and talking about their issues. They don't like us being focused on ourselves.
Thanks very much. Thank you.